I think it was one of the music papers, gave the, something to do with Neat Records, I think possibly, called it New Wave of British Heavy Metal.
Okay, we're Demon. Something from the unexpected guest.
But it wasn't sort of advertised that we were all these bands that were playing. We were playing.
Came and name it, basically.
We were playing all over the country. I mean, punk had happened, punk had died a little bit, and so the natural progression, there was a lot of places to play. So we were out there playing, and but we didn't know that it was a new movement. We knew more after. The time I've spent since, when people said, "What did you think?" And I said, "Well, there wasn't a big sign up somewhere that said New Wave of British Heavy Metal. It just basically, that's how it came about. And then they called it that." We all wanted to play rock, of course. You know, I grew up with listening to Hendrix and, you know, Black Sabbath and you name it. And it was a natural thing. We came from the Midlands, which is, you know, near to Birmingham, so we naturally wanted to do that. And then we got an agent and we started working, playing. And it was good because there was a lot of work about and there was a lot of bands about. Even though a lot of the bands from that period, they'd be working one night when we'd be working somewhere else. But it was really good because it's, you know, we just wanted to play. Yeah, I mean, there was a natural progression in the late 70s to the early 80s. Everything goes full circle. I mean, punk had peaked. And so basically, I think the rock bands started to emerge. I mean, I don't know how it happened, but I mean, so I just wanted to play. I wanted to be in a band, and from school, I met up with different people, and eventually we called ourselves Demon and became part of what was later the New Wave. I mean, I suppose I always liked rock, and I always say, if you understand, I'm a sucker for a song. I like a good melody. And I think when Demon came along and we did the first album, if I can mention that now, Night of the Demon, I mean, when you look back, I mean, they are like pop songs. We had a single up called Liar, and a friend of mine who has managed the band for 40 years, Mike Stone had Clay Records, and that was where we lived. And he had Discharge, GBH, and quite a lot of the bands were on Clay Records. Mm-hmm. I got to know him, and then he asked me what I was doing. And I said, "I've got a band called Demon." And he said, "Would you bring something in?" And I bought some tracks and we recorded Liar. And we were, in fact, at that point in time, we weren't quite sure what we were called. So we called ourselves Demon. And I think what happened then, the single started getting featured in a lot of the British Sounds charts and things. So we then decided to go for an album, and the obvious title would be for an album, Night of the Demon, one of those black and white great films. So then we had to say, well, surely we're going to have a stage show to do with what we've written. So we got a latex suit, which I've still got at home, the slate. We went out and played small venues, and I used to spend about an hour and a half trying to get this latex suit on, get the head on, and then come out of a grave. We designed a grave. We didn't have the money of Kiss or anyone like that. We had no promoters. So we spent all the time becoming Demon. Let's sell this image with it to Night of the Demon. And we went out on tour in Britain, and it worked.
All right.
And people liked the album, so it was. I thought if I ever get the chance to make albums, I'd like to be like, you look at David Bowie, Pink Floyd, Deep Purple, they didn't make the same album every time. And I never wanted to make the same album twice. So when we did Night of the Demon, then The Unexpected Guest, which is about, it's actually about, I'm looking at that window, it's about strange things.
Yeah.
and this is all these years later. It's about strange things that go on, but instead of being, you know, mask and boo, it's in the head what is going on. Things like, I mean, the Night of the Demon was just straightforward. It's straightforward what it was. The opening rise, then into Night of the Demon, and all the melodics. And but with the Unexpected Guest, it was looking deeper. I mean, the song a lot of people didn't know. Sign of a Madman was about the guy who shot John Lennon. And and there's a lot on there. There's a track called Strange Institution, which is a slow track on side 2. And it was about my father, and he had a disease and he couldn't remember things. So I wrote the song about him. And they were all things that were beyond us. Don't Break the Circle, I might be jumping the gun here. Don't Break the Circle and The Spell was Mal Spooner, who's no longer with us, and myself wrote the album. And we researched, well, I forget the guy's name, but very popular at the time, Crowley, Alistair Crowley. Because Ozzy mentioned him a few times, and he's Mr. Crowley. But we researched that, the Spell and Don't Break the Circle, as to what actually happened. So we wrote The Spell and we wrote Don't Break the Circle, which was about that unknown thing. So The Unexpected Guest was a look at the deeper side, as opposed to things that go strange in the night.
That's awesome.
Shall I slow down?
No.
I talk too much.
That's exactly what we want.
I think, like with everything that comes and goes, whether it be thrash, whether it be new wave, whether it be glam, or the Bon Jovi thing, and they have a limited time at the top. I know we mentioned punk is still very big. Mm-hmm. All I mentioned about punk is it actually peaked at a particular time, but I think punk was unique. Mm-hmm. The following on from punk, like Discharge and that, I think they're totally unique. The new wave came and it went. It was only, I mean, I've got a book at home, and I think there's 150 bands that were around at that time. I didn't see them all or play with them all, but there is a book on it. But it lasted 2 or 3 years, and then I think most of the bands finished. I think 80% of the bands, the Saxon Maidens, went on to bigger things. And we were doing quite well in Germany and France, so we came and we carried on. And I think that's what happens, though. Yeah, I wanted to move on anyway. I wanted to sort of say that there was more to us than those first 2 albums, which were representative of that period, even though the albums, I think, are as good as anything. So we moved on because my upbringing was, like I say, you know, with all the great artists, they didn't dwell on the same album every time, so we moved on. As far as the bands themselves, most of them, no, I mean, like I say, with any era, the big bands go on to bigger things and they go with major companies. Like with punk and the lesser bands, I mean, they had faded out generally. I wouldn't say in America, in Greece, they were still very popular. But movements have a thing in Britain where they move on to the, you know, bring on the next. And so it wasn't as popular. I mean, a lot of the bands couldn't get work because thrash came in, because the American thing, it went full circle. Bon Jovi was in, the glam bands were in, then thrash was in. So if you were a band from the new wave of British heavy metal in Britain in 1986, you couldn't get work. Fortunately, we came over to Europe and places, and we continued from there, and we've always continued to make albums and, you know, a reasonable popularity. But yeah, I think like punk, it was rebellious. Mm-hmm. It followed on being a rebellious, you know, after the first 2 albums, we wrote lots of times about it, and we did The Plague and other albums. But yeah, I think the new wave definitely was a rebellious spirit that carried on from punk. And obviously, like you mentioned, the Thatcher, where you know, there was a big divide in Britain. You maybe didn't feel it over here in Europe, but Britain always takes itself serious. but don't tell them. But I mean, we all move on, that's what happens. I think Britain moves on quicker than most, and the music is not forgotten, like you say, the music continues. And here we are talking about the new wave of British heavy metal. We had time, so basically we'd done about 13 years together. We'd done the Europe trip, we went to America and places. And by 92, it was just, we just decided to take a little bit of a break. And the break, I mean, I did a solo album, which I didn't want to do. I mean, it got some tracks, and there's a company in Germany said, well, let's finish them off. And but it did okay. And so 92, for a few years, we were just, everyone was just having this break. And then we came back, I think it's 97, and Kippy, was it Bang Your Head or Kippy True? Bang Your Head, one of the early ones. And what happened with us, everybody was there. We had an amazing night when we came back, and everybody said, where do we get all the records, the albums from? So we then, Mike Stone and myself from Clay, who manages us, and myself spent a couple of years getting all our catalogue back, and then it was become available again. But yeah, the 90s, yeah, I suppose it was true, but I was said to you earlier in the shop, I think as time's gone on, people are getting more interested again in the new wave and in that period, and you know, because it did mean a lot, and it did. I'm sure it changed a lot in the rock business. Yeah, I think so, because people start to look around, don't they? Like you say, there is unrest. It's and the world's so instant. When we started 40-something years ago, a lot of people hadn't got a phone. You know, I mean, basically that was it. Now, I mean, you can know what's happening in another country while we're standing here. So it's become more instant, and I think people also discover things. They can immediately tap in and say, the new wave of British heavy metal, what was that all about? The world is so uncertain in a lot of ways. I mean, and you can just go and enjoy good music. And you think, well, I want to go where I want to go, because I don't want to sit here listening to all that, what's going on in the world. You know, we didn't rise to become Aerosmith, but I think we had, people tend to regard us a little bit of a legendary band. I think it's because we were always there. I know we did have a break, like I say, but we were always there.
You can't discontinue with your producing albums over the years.
Yeah, we continued to, I think we've done 14 studio albums and numerous. So we continued, and I think this following has always been there. And I've always said we could probably go to the most remotest island in the world where there was 5 people and somebody had no don't break the circle on that. so you can't get away from it, but why should we? If that makes them happy. And you know, it's just, we're thankful for it, very proud of that, and you know, that most places do know us. Even more now because of the world. I think the legacy I'd like, and 40-something years ago, I mean, I didn't want to be a star or anything like that. I wanted to play rock. I wanted to continue my fascination. I've been married 45 years. My wife says that it's my drug. I don't take drugs, but I have to do it. She'll know when I'm sitting in the house, she's doing something, and she'll say, you're writing, aren't you? You know, because I go quiet. And it's like my drug. It makes me feel better. My kids and my grandchildren find me a better person when I'm involved in something, because it's, I feel good. You know, it's my injection. And I think the legacy I'd like to think is both, when we started, I mean, I remember, if I can quickly tell you, I remember sitting in the back of a shop, very much like this. I had a record shop back in the late 70s with Mal Spooner, who we wrote the first 3 albums, and in about 5 minutes we were sitting there going, and all of a sudden I started, there's a scream in the night, death, and we're doing this, don't you know? And he said, where did that come from? It's all right, just rehearsing. And Mal said, well, where did that come from? I said, I've no idea, we're Demon, we're going to do this album, The Demon. So, and we sat, and let me just tell you, so we sat in the back of the shop and we knocked it off. It's a pop song, because you could da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, like the
you can dance it.
Like the Ghost stuff and that. Yeah, I've heard disco versions of it, and so. But the great thing is, I said to Mel, we were sitting in the shop, we were playing, going out there playing in different bands. We just started Demon. And then Mike Stone said to us, we'd done Liar, he said, well, have you got an album? I said, an album? No, but we'll not one. So we're there sitting in the shop. And I said to Mal, and it was true, I said, do you think anyone will remember this song next year? That was 1980. And he says, well, but what we always hoped to do, Mal and myself, it was never about fame or money. We just said if someone remembers that we made a contribution to music. And there was a reviewer recently, it's taken a long time, that reviewed our new album. And his headline was, surely this band should be remembered to have made a contribution to music, because he loved the new album and what we've done, so I rest my case.
All right, that's pretty amazing and a great way to finish this, I believe. Well,
thank you very much,
yeah,
Irene.
Thank you very much for everything.